Hi, I'm Laura Nelkin. I'm a knitwear designer. I live in upstate New York in the Finger Lakes region, and I am excited to introduce you to a technique I'm in love with that I'm calling Lola's pickup line. If you've been following me for a little while, you'll know that I'm a bit obsessed with Stitch Saver, which is 2 millimeter hollow silicone tubing. And you might also know that I am not a fan of picking up stitches. So I've come up with a way to use Stitch Saver at the edges of my work so that I don't need to pick up stitches. And it has pretty much made my knitting life much simpler, and I think it is going to make yours easier as well. So in this short video, I'm going to show you how to get started using the Stitch Saver, how to slide your stitches from the Stitch Saver onto your needle, and then I'll show you how you can use this technique at the heel of a sock if you want to. As always, all of my videos are timestamped below, so if you want to jump ahead to a specific technique, you can go ahead and do that. I'll also give you links below to anything I talk about, like where to get Stitch Saver, a blog post if you want to learn more about it, and anything else that comes up along the way. So without further ado, let's jump right in and look at how you can use Stitch Saver to pick up stitches at the edge of your work. Okay, so let me show you under the camera what the Stitch Saver looks like going up the edge of your fabric and how it works. If you look at the Stitch Saver, you can see that it has a hole. So what you can do is stick it onto your needle and then just slide your stitches onto your Stitch Saver to hold them. But you can see what I've done here is I have the Stitch Saver just kind of going up the side of my knitting. I'm wrapping the Stitch Saver around that cord and then going ahead and knitting across, and those are the stitches that then will get picked up by sliding the needle onto them. What I'm going to do now is show you how I start working with the Stitch Saver, just to give you an idea of how you would get going and then how it works. And then I have an idea of a few questions you're going to be thinking of in your mind, and I'll go over the answer to those. So right here, I just have some stitches cast onto my needle, and I've got a long piece of Stitch Saver here. And what I'm going to do is lay it over my working yarn and wrap my working yarn around it so that I'm catching the Stitch Saver with my working yarn. And then I'm going to pull up kind of tight because I don't want things to get baggy on the edge of my work. And I'm going to knit all the way across to the other side. Now, sometimes when you're doing this, like with my Novus construction, you'll want to be carrying Stitch Saver up both sides of your work. And sometimes if you're working like the right panel of a sweater, you're only going to be doing this on one side of your work. But I'm going to pretend that I'm working it on both just so you can see what happens. Now I'm going to take the Stitch Saver, I'm going to lay it over my working yarn, and then I am going to wrap it around the Stitch Saver and then knit back across to the other side. Isn't that so easy to work? The astute of you will notice that as I am doing this, I'm only catching one stitch in every other row coming up my knitting. So if I grab my bigger swatch now to show you that, if we kind of hold it to the side so that you can see those stitches that I'm grabbing, those are one stitch in every other row. So let's say I am done with what I'm doing and it's time for me to get those picked up stitches on the needles. What I'm going to do is put my needle into that tube and then slide those stitches onto my needle. And now I have those picked up stitches all ready to go. Now, if you are working on, let's say, a button band, and the button band says to pick up 3 stitches in every 4 rows, then what you're going to do after you slide those stitches onto the needles is go ahead and pick up 1 stitch one row leg in between every other stitch you've picked up. So I've picked up one there, and I'm not going to pick up one in between those two stitches. And then I'm going to pick up one there, but I'm not going to pick up one between those stitches. And I'll do that all the way down. And then that will give me 3 stitches in every 4 rows. So that might be a helpful tidbit if you're using this on a button band or a collar that has that directive. If something says to pick up like 7 stitches in 8 rows, do the math, pretty obvious. You'll be picking up more in between and fewer times, you'll be skipping that. For my Novus sweaters, you are picking up a stitch in every other row, and that's why it works so beautifully with that. For Lola, one of my designs, you were picking up stitches in every other row. So again, this technique worked spot on. One of you one day on Instagram, when I was showing how to do this technique, asked if you could do this on the heel of a sock. So of course I had to try that. So I've got a heel of a sock right here, but this heel of the sock is worked in DK weight yarn. So I'm using the stitch saver, wrapping the stitch saver around and working across the heel of the sock. And then when it's time to go pick up these stitches for the gusset, and when you do that, you're picking up 1 stitch in every other row, you'll just be able to slide those right onto a needle, which is pretty slick. But if you're working with fingering weight yarn, which is what most of us are doing when we are working on a sock, you'll see that I have a sock right here underneath the camera, and I'm going to show you what's happening right here. When I tried to use the stitch saver with this technique on the sock, I found that the stitches that I picked up were too large going around the stitch saver, and I wasn't happy with that. So what I'm doing right here, and I'm trying to just turn it so you can see it, instead of using stitch saver, I used like a 24-inch size 0 or size 00 needle, a really small millimeter needle with a really fine cord, and I used that to wrap the stitches around. So I am all done with my heel right here, and I've got my heel turn worked. And now when I go ahead to start working in the round, let me see if I can get this kind of cleaned up so I can show you. 1 second. I am going to wrap the yarn around that needle one more time, and then I am going to take my working needle and I am going to knit across all of my heel stitches. This is just like the coolest thing, and I had to show you how it works. And then when I get all the way across to those gusset stitches, they are already on a needle. And since they're already on that small diameter needle waiting to be worked, I can just go ahead and start to work through those stitches. Now you'll see that I like to twist those stitches as I work them so that they're nice and tight and tidy as I knit across that needle. But that means all of those gusset stitches that typically you would be picking up and putting onto a needle are all ready to go as you work down them. Now, if you're intrigued by this, I do have a sock pattern that just came out called Larch Peds, where I write this technique for using Lola's pickup line into the pattern. So if you want to try it once with the pattern where it's all written in for you, you can go ahead and do that. There's a video tutorial that shows you every step of how to work a heel with this technique. I am clearly pretty excited about it. Definitely ask me any questions that you have below about this technique. I love learning and I love sharing with you. Go ahead and subscribe to my channel, hit the like button, do all the things. The best way to hear when I come up with new ideas is to sign up for my newsletter, and I'll make sure to link that below as well. Happy knitting!